Hey everyone, this is TH Stories 80, where we narrate fanfiction audiobooks. Now we begin Chapter 2 of Return of the Darkness. Reception Hall, Konoha. Ino internally sighed as she slow danced with Choji. They were two of the three, Naruto being the third, from the original Konoha 11 who had arrived at the wedding without dates. Not that Choji wasn't boyfriend material. He had already proven his valor many times during what was now known as the Fourth Great War. And as Ino thought to herself earlier that day when she saw him in his suit, he looks good in a suit, even though she had chuckled at the memory of waving at Choji and Shikamaru while they were talking with Naruto. Well, he could lose a bit of the weight if he wants to grab a girl. Almost immediately, her internal voice snapped at her to shut up. He's already going out with that girl from Kumo. What's her name again? Oh, right, Karui. And he thinks we don't know. Diplomatic missions to Kumo every few weeks. Yeah, right. As Ino danced with her chubby teammate, a small smile played on her lips. She was well aware she was considered one of the most sought-after women in Konoha. She was confident in her beauty, intelligence, and mastery of her clan's techniques. On top of that, she was a fully qualified medic-nin, nearly on par with Sakura, and proud of her sensory abilities. The only problem was the lingering feelings she still held for Sasuke, even though they had dulled over the years. And with his marriage to Sakura, Ino knew he was firmly off the market. After Sasuke's return to the village following his self-imposed exile, he had proposed to Sakura. It was after that proposal that Ino had fallen into a slight depression. It was then that her mother, the widow of Yamanaka Inoichi, had found her, and they had a long, heartfelt conversation that stretched late into the night. Mom's right, Ino thought, glancing at Sasuke and Sakura dancing in the center of the floor. It was just a one-sided love. She turned back to Choji, who now had a faraway look in his eyes. Hey, Choji, Ino said, lightly tapping on his shoulder. You're dancing with one of the most beautiful girls in Konoha, and you're spacing out? Choji grinned sheepishly, saying he'd just been thinking about something. Before he could finish, Ino leaned in with a smirk. That redhead from Kumo's coming soon, isn't she? I think the Chunin exams are around the corner and, well, she chuckled as Choji's cheeks began to redden. Representatives from all the villages will be here for the exams. Yeah, well, Choji chuckled awkwardly. Oh, come on, Choji, Ino teased. You really didn't think I wasn't going to ask how it's going between you and your girlfriend? We're okay, Choji stuttered, looking away. I mean, I've gone up there a few times and she's been coming here and... Yeah. Ino laughed softly at the sight of his reddened, swirled cheeks, practically glowing like tomatoes. Don't let that one go, Choji, Ino said, her tone softening as the teasing faded. Choji looked back at her with equal seriousness and nodded. Ino smiled before glancing over at Shikamaru and Temari dancing, Shikamaru looking utterly bored while Temari smirked in amusement at him. Those two are going to be good together, Ino mused, then turned her gaze towards Sasuke and Sakura again. You're lucky, forehead. First of our group to get married. She internally chuckled at the memory of their old insults, now more like affectionate nicknames. Just like how Naruto calls Sasuke-kun Teme and he calls Naruto Dope. Her gaze shifted to Sai, dancing with a girl in a shimmering red dress. Ino recognized her as a kunoichi from Iwagakure, who had fought alongside them in the war, though she couldn't recall her name. Like Temari, she was in Konoha as a representative for the upcoming combined Chunin exams, a plan Kakashi had devised to strengthen the camaraderie forged during the war. Ino shook her head, forcing herself to look away from Sai. She had harbored a small crush on him ever since he had called her pretty. They had gone on a few dates, but nothing had come of it. She sighed and looked over at Neji and Tenten. The pair were dancing gracefully. Already engaged, they were set to marry next month with Hyuga Hiyashi's blessing. The poor man had lost his eldest daughter during the war, and Ino's heart ached for him, and for young Hanabi, now the heiress of the Hyuga clan. Thinking of Hanabi, Ino chuckled quietly at the memory of Kurohamaru's obvious crush on her. It was then, while watching Neji and Tenten, that Ino caught a flicker of movement out of the corner of her eye, a shadow darting across the far wall. snapped her head toward it, startling Choji. "Did you see something?" he asked, glancing around. He saw nothing and turned back to Ino, who was still scanning the hall, a chill running through her. "Ino?" Choji asked, concerned, but she didn't answer. Her eyes sweeping past him, almost through him, scanning, searching. What is this feeling? She wondered. She hadn't seen the shape again, nor sensed any unfamiliar chakra. Yet the sense of something else lingered. Something dark. Something dangerous. The hairs on her neck stood on end as Choji asked again if something was wrong. Ino didn't reply immediately. She finally shook her head. Maybe it's just my imagination. She looked back at Choji and offered a smile, one that would have made most men weak at the knees, but she knew it wouldn't fool Choji. He and Shikamaru knew her too well. But that shadow, it wasn't human. It didn't look like anything. She shook her head. Maybe it really was my imagination? I just thought I saw something, Choji, she said at last. What did you see? Choji asked. With so many high-ranking figures present, elders, Akashi, Tsunade, Sasuke, Naruto, he knew Anbu were nearby, watching closely for threats. If anything was wrong, Anbu would catch it, he thought before whispering. We've got Konoha's heavy hitters here, and foreign dignitaries. If anyone tries anything, they'll deal with Anbu, and with us. What I sensed was something dark, Ino whispered, uncertainty clouding her face. Choji scanned the room again, but saw nothing. He wondered if Ino was simply unsettled by Sakura's wedding to the boy they had once fought over. Ino, he began, but she didn't hear him. Ino, he whispered again. She blinked and looked back at him. Maybe it's just your imagination, he said gently. Maybe, she whispered, shrugging. She exhaled softly and tried to let it go. Leading Choji in the dance, Ino brushed against Shikamaru's shoulder. She smirked over her shoulder. This is gonna be you and Temari next month. Shikamaru laughed nervously while Temari smirked. Kara will be coming a week early to meet him, she told Ino. With Kankuro. They want a heart-to-heart. Troublesome in-laws, Shikamaru muttered. Ah yes, Choji chimed in. The brother protecting the sister speech. And in this case, Temari added, two very dangerous brothers. Choji and Ino burst into laughter while Shikamaru hung his head. Troublesome, he groaned. They drifted away and Ino turned back to Choji. As she did, she noticed Tsunade sitting alone, cheeks flushed bright red before her head thunked onto the table. Ino's concern rose until a brief scan of her chakra told Ino the truth. Tsunade was simply passing out from too much sake. Smirking, Ino turned her head and looked over Choji's shoulder at Naruto, who was raising the glass in his hand towards someone on the dance floor. She glanced around and smiled at Sakura, who was smiling back at Naruto before laying her head on Sasuke's chest. Earlier, she had noticed Naruto turning down several women who had asked him to dance. He sheepishly claimed he was a bad dancer and would probably step on their toes. She overheard him laughing and scratching the back of his head, saying that others would make far better dance partners than him. By that time, Ino had already danced with Shikamaru, then with Kiba, and now she was dancing with Choji. I haven't asked him for a dance, Ino thought as she looked at Naruto, who appeared to be speaking to the empty chair beside him. She furrowed her eyebrows, wondering if it was just her imagination, or if he truly was addressing the empty chair. She watched him look around in surprise, then back to the chair, and again scan his surroundings before returning his gaze to the empty chair. Ino saw him take a deep breath before his lips moved. It's like he's talking to someone there. Her eyes shifted to the chair. I don't sense anything. Ino kept moving to the music, but her eyes remained fixed on the seat next to Naruto. Suddenly, a chill seeped through her body. She stopped dancing. Choji whispered, asking if she felt something, confused as she had stopped leading their slow dance. Ino ignored him, narrowing her eyes at Naruto. She watched as he turned his head toward his hand on the table, then back to the empty chair. The look on his face was one of utter surprise. Ino? Choji asked, concern in his voice. Ino realized how suspicious she must have looked, staring over his shoulder. Choji turned his head and then his body to follow her gaze. Together they watched Naruto and the chair. Ino let go of Choji, rubbing her arms and hands to fight the chill crawling through her skin. Ino began, About to say she felt strangely cold, as if an unnatural chill hung in the air. But she fell silent as Naruto's lips moved again, his body animated, as if he was speaking to someone. Choji had the same stunned reaction. He whispered, watching Naruto speak into thin air. Is it just me, or is Naruto talking to someone? It was then that Ino gasped. Choji immediately turned to her and asked, wide-eyed, Ino, what is it? Are you... A piercing dread struck her chest. Trembling, she turned back to Naruto. They saw him clutch his chest with one hand and his neck with the other. His expression twisted in agony as he slid from his chair. Ino and Choji bolted toward him. Tsunade, former Hokage before passing the title to Kakashi, had simply come to attend as the head of the Konoha Medical Corps and Hospital. She had drunk too much sake and was taking a nap. But in an instant, she felt a shift in the air. She snapped upright, eyes scanning the hall. Instinctively, she entered Hokage mode, her senses locking onto Naruto. Something was wrong. Something inexplicable. A chill crawled up her spine. Tsunade, the legendary sucker, had a gambler's intuition, and it screamed at her now. She sensed something dark, something evil surrounding the young man she thought of as a godson. Then Naruto's eyes rolled back and he clutched his chest. Immediately, Tsunade moved. She darted across the hall just as Naruto collapsed, the thud muffled beneath music and laughter. From the corner of her eye, she saw Ino and Choji rushing toward him. Cat, raven, wolf, Tsunade whispered to the hidden Anbu as she sprinted past tables and chairs. She no longer held the Hokage title, but in dire emergencies, her authority remained. And this, whatever it was, qualified. Peace reigned after the Fourth Great War, but if the sand or stone representatives saw Naruto fall under mysterious circumstances, political chaos could follow. It's too risky, she thought. Could this be an attack? Reaching Naruto, she murmured, I need a Genjutsu, now. One where I'm still sitting and Naruto is still at his chair, drinking. She felt the tingle of Genjutsu activation, but she knew skilled shinobi would sense it, especially Sasuke and Kakashi. Sharingan or not, Kakashi could detect high-level illusions. Ino, Tsunade said, locking eyes with her. Use your mind transmission jutsu. Inform the Hokage. After that, contact Sasuke. Tell him Naruto fell from his chair and I'm checking on him. If he asks why, say it's to avoid panic. Understood? Yes, Ino nodded, turning toward Kakashi, who was heading toward the bar with his date. She formed the seals and activated her jutsu. Meanwhile, Tsunade placed 2 fingers on Naruto's neck, checking for a pulse. Naruto, Choji muttered, knowing no one outside the Genjutsu could see or hear them. Tsunade's illusion made it appear she was drunk and unconscious, and Naruto merely sat watching the dancers. Choji looked to Tsunade. He grabbed his chest before he fell. He looked like he was in pain. I saw it too, Tsunade replied, swallowing her unease. I'm tipsy, but this feeling isn't from the sake. I've operated drunk before, but this is different. I feel cold, bone deep cold, like something just walked over my grave. I've sent the message, Ino said, turning back. Tsunade met Kakashi's eyes through the veil of Genjutsu. He subtly nodded before glancing at Sasuke, who was already watching. Tsunade turned her gaze to Sasuke, silently warning him not to draw attention. He nodded, though displeased. I'm not happy either, kid, Tsunade thought, looking back at Naruto, who lay still, as if in a peaceful sleep. Tsunade-sama, we saw him speaking to someone, Ino said. Tsunade whipped her gaze to the Yamanaka. Someone who wasn't there. Someone who wasn't there? Tsunade narrowed her eyes and looked down at Naruto again. Was he hallucinating? She placed her hands over his head and gently pushed chakra into him. Slowly, carefully, using it as a diagnostic probe to check for neurological damage. Did we miss something in his last physical? She wondered. Physically, nothing seemed wrong, yet something was off. Increasing her chakra flow slightly, she traced his chakra pathways, muscles, circulatory system, when a strange sensation struck her. Tsunade-sama? Choji asked as she pulled back her hands, whispering something under her breath. She looked at them. I felt my chakra being pulled from me. Pulled? Ino asked. My chakra, and Naruto's, being drawn to... Tsunade gestured just above Naruto's neck, then slowly lowered her hand to hover 3 inches above his heart. Here. She hesitated. and I feel something around his chest. The air is thick, like hot sour soup, Choji suggested, placing his hand near hers. But I don't feel anything. What is this dread? Ino thought, bringing her hand beside Tsunade's. As her fingers entered the invisible field, she gasped. It felt as if her arm plunged into thick, unseen liquid. Then an electric current shot up her skin, through muscle, bone, spine, striking the base of her neck. She jerked back, choking as blackness swallowed her. Moments later, blinding light tore open in front of her, through two what seemed like windows that opened. Eyes. I'm looking through someone's eyes, Ino whispered, stunned. She stared at the sky, torn apart as if they were gaping wounds. The clouds tinged pink, blood, thick and metallic, began to rain. There's no one here. Whose eyes am I? What am I seeing? Before she could form another thought, something tightened around her throat. Fingers, she realized. Hearing growls and distant screams. Nails dug into the flesh on the right side of her neck. Warm blood gushed down the left. The grip was ice cold. Help! Shika, Choji, Tsunade-sama! She screamed inwardly, but she was trapped. Only a passenger. In her clan's jutsu, she should have taken control, but here, she was powerless. Shallow breaths rasped. The body she occupied was dying. She tried to raise her arms, to pry the hand from her throat, but her limbs refused to obey. Screams echoed, only to be cut short by wet, sickening squelches. The stench of blood, entrails, and war filled her lungs. She had faced the Fourth Great War, but this was worse. This was terror. I have won, Commander, a woman's voice said, noble, elegant, and ice cold. Ino's vision shifted downward from the sky. A figure stood before her, a tall woman in black, scaled armor with crimson accents. Gore clung to her, blood, flesh, even fragments of brain. Ino stared into her obsidian eyes, at lips slick with fresh blood, at platinum hair drenched in crimson. The woman bared her teeth, serrated, with twin fangs gleaming. Do not worry, Commander, she said, lips curling into a monstrous grin. She raised one arm and clenched her fist. More screams erupted, followed by brutal, tearing sounds. Ino could not move, only watch. Your soul will remain in me. Soul? My soul? A soul will be in her, in it. Ino whispered to herself as she stared at the creature, her heart racing. Humanity will be extinct, the monster declared. This world, like all the other worlds, belongs to me, as it was always meant to. Ino wrapped her arms around herself, shivering as she stared out the windows. And I, Lilith, Queen of Damnation, will rule this world. Ino breathed in and out, feeling another chill. She looked away from the windows before glancing around her darkened surroundings, then back out again. The monster continued. And then I'll bring more of my brood here. They will feed on the dead, just as I feed on life. And then the universe. All life throughout this universe is mine to feed. And then I will move on to the next universe, and my next meal. Ino felt the creature release her throat, or rather, the throat of the body she currently occupied. She felt herself falling, and before she knew it, the body collapsed sideways onto wet ground that stank of iron and bile. She hit the ground on her side, her head sinking partly into the blood-soaked mud. She saw the back of the creature walking away, but not before it killed more and more people wearing silver and cream-colored armor. Akashi! Ino's eyes widened as she heard the whispered voice echoing in the darkness. The windows slowly shifted toward a yellow-haired man in the distance, partly covered in blood, lying on his back atop several other dead bodies. Ino saw his metallic armor torn to shreds, the flesh beneath ripped and bleeding, his neck torn open, flesh and bone exposed. Ino brought her hands to her mouth as she felt the woman. Ino could tell from the voice it was a female, crawling through the bloody ground toward the man. Ino felt the wet ground beneath her as the body she occupied crawled over corpses, surrounded by explosions and screams of pain, the sounds of bones breaking and steel crumbling all around. She felt the woman's urgency, rage, and sorrow as she continued to crawl, her strength rapidly draining. As the woman moved forward, Ino saw bodies that were definitely not human, lying bloodied around her. Some had no heads, with rows of broken teeth and tongues lolling from holes in their chests. Others had two heads with serpentine bodies, or mouths in their hands, and heads shaped like metallic boxes with sharp spikes. What is this? Ino's eyes widened as she looked away from the windows. What am I seeing? Some kind of war? A war against demons? Is that what's happening? Where is this? Akashi. The voice echoed again. Who are you, Akashi? Ino wondered as the woman crawled closer to the dead man, reaching out with a trembling, blood-drenched hand. Ino felt the woman's grief as tears welled in her eyes, her shaking hand landing on the man's lifeless left hand and tightening. Ino squinted at the man. His pale blue eyes stared back, empty and lifeless. She gulped. It was then she heard thunder in the distance. The female monster, Lilith, screamed, "You are too late!" somewhere far off. Ino wanted to see what was happening, but the woman she inhabited remained fixated on the dead man, using the last of her strength to crawl forward until she hovered directly above him. Ino heard panting, the woman's breath shallow, her eyes just above the dead man's. This close, Ino ignored the stench of blood and panted through the woman's lips, shaking her head. What kind of joke is this? Ino thought as the woman leaned forward, resting her forehead against the man's. He looked just like Naruto, without the whisker marks. She said that my soul will be in her, the woman rasped, her voice trembling beneath the roar of distant battle. I'll see you there, Akashi. I'll see you there, my love. Love? Ino thought, disbelieving. Seriously, what the hell is this? Suddenly a great roar erupted in the distance. Ino wanted to turn the woman's head to see, but she couldn't. She was trapped, forehead pressed to Akashi. The cold seeped deeper. Keep on her! A woman's voice shouted over thunder and crackling wildfire. Don't stop. We seal her here and now. I want to see what's going on, Ino yelled, forced to stare through eyes rapidly looking focus. And suddenly there was silence. She did it, Akashi, the woman whispered, her forehead still resting against his. Ino peered through a white haze. It's over. It's over. But she has us now. She has us and... Find survivors, a male voice called in the distance. Get the medics here now. Move, move. Ino didn't recognize the voice. The woman's life was fading, and then Ino heard more familiar voices echoing through the surrounding darkness. Choji, carry Ino, Tsunade ordered, her voice distant, yet unmistakable. Hi, Choji responded just as the woman's final breaths rattled. I don't see anything physically wrong with Naruto, so carrying him back to the hospital won't be a problem, Tsunade said, her voice as if from far away. Tsunade-sama, Choji, Ino cried into the void. No response. Rihanna. Ino looked back through the woman's eyes. She felt the body being lifted, turning onto its back. Through the haze, Ino saw clouds parting, tears in the sky closing, faint sunlight breaking through. Then the woman's eyes shifted, and Ino stared at a familiar face. General, the woman, Rihanna, croaked. Did we win? We won, the older blonde woman replied, tears streaming down her blood-stained cheeks, warm trails cutting through the grime. We won, the older woman replied, tears streaming down her blood-stained cheeks, warm trails cutting through the grime. We won, they are all retreating. They began their retreat the moment Lilith was sealed away, and... Good, Rihanna whispered. Ino felt the crushing grief as the woman placed a trembling hand over her chest. The general fell to her knees, screaming for a medic, her voice cracking each time. Get me a medic now! She screamed again. Ino felt tears streaming down her own face, overwhelmed by Rihanna's emotions. Mother, we won. Rihanna's eyes fluttered. Ino sensed what she meant to say, that she would be with Akashi. And then everything turned dark. A scream of rage echoed as Ino's eyes snapped open, and she was staring into Choji's worried face. You guys, Ino whispered, panting as she sat up. She looked around the reception hall, everyone still dancing, Sasuke watching her intently before glancing down at Sakura. Ino shook her head slightly, offering Choji a weak smile as his hand steadied her back. Okay, Ino thought. I'm back in the reception hall. She turned her head, staring at Naruto in confusion, then shifted her gaze to Tsunade, concern etched across the elder woman's face. Ino, what happened? Tsunade asked. She looks so much like her, Ino thought, remembering the general. The eye color, the features, all the same except for the seal on Tsunade-sama's forehead. What was that? Tsunade-sama, Ino stammered. How long was I? You screamed, closed your eyes, fell back, and then woke up. All in under a minute, Choji replied. Ino blinked. To her, it had felt longer. Ino, what happened? He asked gently. I don't know, Ino said, wiping her eyes. I saw things that I can't explain. A tremor ran through her. A chill crept up her spine. Tsunade, too, snapped her gaze toward Naruto, then back to Ino. They locked eyes. Choji, carry Ino, Tsunade ordered. Tsunade-sama, Ino protested. I can walk. You just fainted, Tsunade said softly, then looked to Choji. Carry her, I'll take Naruto. We're going to the hospital, now. Okay, Ino whispered as Choji lifted her. Tsunade gathered Naruto. But, Tsunade-sama, there's something I need to tell you and the Hokage. Something I saw, or... I don't even know what to call it, but... She hesitated. I saw something that's not normal. After you're checked, we'll talk, Tsunade replied. Contact Kakashi. Tell him to meet us at the hospital when the reception ends. If anyone at the hospital asks about Naruto and Ino, Choji asked. Naruto got sick from the sake. Ino had chest pains. I'll diagnose it as heartburn, Tsunade instructed. Understood? Yes, ma'am, Ino and Choji replied. Ino sent the message through her jutsu. Kakashi nodded and returned to the dance floor. Once done, Ino nodded, confirming the message was sent. Let's go, Tsunade said, and they leapt into motion. Naruto, Ino thought as rooftops blurred beneath them. What's happening to you? She turned her gaze away, shivering. What is this feeling of dread? To be continued.